Some anonymous complaints had the state officials come into my house and do fucking this. This is how they left this shit. Is this necessary? Do you think this is fucking necessary? And they took Peanut from me. They took Fred from me. This is like a bad dream, guys. Got a criminal search warrant signed by a criminal judge. My opinion, guys, is because I have one of those spicy pages, because I have people that come here all the time, I'm going to assume the camera question was to try to put me in a position to tell them I had a spicy page and to see if I ever had children in my house. Somebody in this place targeted me and my family. The government used their power to look for something other than a squirrel and a raccoon. I was targeted. And when we find out who is behind this, we will see it. We don't have our accuser right now. I know y'all have found some people on the internet that you think is the person. Let's just make sure that we have the right person.
Okay, you guys, so this story majorly blew up, and I know what you might think my feelings about it are. I am an advocate of exotic pet ownership after all, and I strongly believe that in most cases, we should be free to choose the species of animals that we prefer to own. I think we should respect other people's differences and pursuits. I tend to support fellow exotic pet owners, but no, not this time. There are things about this situation that are just rubbing me the wrong way, and I don't know where to start. Just for some background, Peanut the squirrel is, or was, this Instagram famous rodent. Mark Longo owned him in Connecticut and New York for 7 years, posting cutesy videos of himself, his wife, and a melanistic squirrel that was supposedly rescued from the streets of New York. That is until the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation showed up at his home with a search warrant, ultimately seizing Peanut and a raccoon named Fred due to, quote, multiple anonymous complaints. And what's worse, the pair was euthanized following an alleged bite from the squirrel in question to one of the officers. With this, internet chaos ensued. This story even hit the national news, with public figures and celebrities aggressively supporting Longo. We even have people making the situation political, suggesting that Democrats or whatever are responsible for this.
I want this to be a turning point in our government. Obviously, you guys know what color this state is, but you all can fucking know what side I'm leaning on right now.
Yet I can't say any political party has expressed much concern for the plight of exotic pet owners, but anyway, Longo said he just wants answers, and I have them. It's extremely complicated, so listen closely. Owning a wild squirrel is illegal in New York. Therefore, the illegal squirrel was removed. Owning a wildlife mammal of any type is illegal in most states, including those that have animals like exotic bears legal to own, especially rabies vectors like raccoons. So essentially, the law was written and the law was enforced. What did Longo expect? For them to just refuse to do their jobs? Actually, they might have done that. I have plenty of reason to believe they've been aware of this animal, but let it go until they couldn't anymore. And why is that? Longo obtained a raccoon. As you might know by now, raccoons are rabies vectors. Government officials have always been strict when it comes to rabies, since it's, almost 100% fatal when symptoms show up. But why was Peanut euthanized as well?
New York State's Department of Environmental Conservation, DEC, raided his home and took the squirrel and this pet raccoon that he has. Now remember, he didn't just find these things. They said, well, he was potentially exposed to rabies. He had the squirrel for 7 years. Does it look like it has rabies?
Ugh, the ignorance. This isn't how it works. However, it is true that squirrels have never been known to spread rabies, despite it being possible. Now, the crazy thing about the squirrel being euthanized is that while the raccoon, a rabies vector, is understandable for them to be concerned about, rodents are not a rabies concern. Squirrels are no more prone to getting rabies than any other rodent. If these officials found a guinea pig walking around outside and got bitten by it, I don't think they would care. This just shows the inherent bias against what I call non-TCD animals. That's TCD for traditionally considered domesticated, but I'll get into that in another video. Let's get this straight. First, Longo brought the squirrel to Connecticut, which is another state that has very strict rules on what you can own. In fact, I think they have an awful list of some of the few animals you're allowed to have there, and a wild-caught squirrel is not one of them. Longo chose to own a squirrel in an illegal state. Why not? Instead of moving to New York, choose a state where it's legal, or get someone with a license to hold the animal until you get your proper permits. He chose to do none of this. For 7 years, He put his pet at severe risk. Did his squirrel see the vet? One of the main reasons I would never own an illegal pet is because seeking vet care could get you reported. I'm not going to own an animal with no access to medical care, which is a minimal standard for owning any pet. Sorry. This so-called rescue was an act of selfishness, yet the R word seems to protect people from the hatred I and others receive for having exotic pets.
Nick, you and I reached out to several local lawmakers to try to see if they would have something to say to us about whether or not they were getting involved. A lot of it was crickets. Many weren't interested in saying much of anything. Pretty apparent they don't want to say anything. And we just got some new information a little while ago from two friends of the Longo family. The DEC agents that did the raid did not wear body cameras.
It almost seems like the news is treating this like some kind of shocking conspiracy and framing the DEC as a sinister entity. We've had animals confiscated numerous times, which I speak about on this channel, yet I seem to get a lot of backlash for it. Longo said, honestly, this still kind of feels surreal, that the state I live in actually targeted me and took two of the most beloved animals on this planet away, didn't even quarantine them. To this I say, why, hello, welcome to our world.
A beloved pet was taken from a New Orleans man during Mardi Gras weekend by agents from the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries.
We've heard this before.
That's when they took them and put them in the cage and took them away from me. Gave me tickets for having them.
It was part of a crackdown on exotic animal possession in the French Quarter.
We'll do it as friendly as we can.
I can see the guns. That's not very humane. Why don't you euthanize her?
Ma'am, do you know how they put down cattle?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, they shoot them in the head.
So you're gonna shoot her in the head?
Yeah, I am.
Run, Shailene, Jesus.
Oh my God.
So when a certain species of pythons became illegal, he allowed wildlife officials to come and euthanize almost 3 dozen snakes. But in the confusion, they also killed a beloved pet, a boa constrictor, which also happened to be pregnant.
Their moment of shock is captured on camera when they realize what they've done.
A fish and wildlife officer saw them, and a week later, another officer showed up and took May away. Here's why. It's against state law to have a wild animal without a valid permit.
A Raleigh family apparently nursed an injured deer back to health, but then it became a pet. And when wildlife officials got wind of it, they seized the animal.
A family's dilemma. A young deer becomes its beloved pet. Now, state officials say the animal has got to go. The young deer finds a loving family that saves him from starvation.
Yeah, but that is illegal under Ohio law.
A possum is now in state custody after spending several years as someone's pet.
My husband called me and let me know that there were 4 game wardens around our property, and there were 3 state vehicles surrounding our property. They were blocking off our driveways.
I don't understand. We tried to do what was right. We made the vet appointment on time, took him to the vet because we were told that was one of the things we were told we had to do.
She took her pet bobcat, Capone, to a new vet last Thursday, and the next day there was a knock on her door. An Illinois Department of Conservation officer was confiscating Capone.
A Springs woman who kept a fox as a pet says Colorado wildlife officers seized that fox and euthanized it. Ashiger rescued the fox anyway, named him Flash, cared for him, even started an Instagram page. But someone tipped off wildlife officers and they stepped in.
Yes, there are laws that we are required to follow, laws that I find to be profoundly unjust. And yes, in several states, it's not even legal to own a squirrel, which is a small rodent. We're not talking tigers and bears here, folks. Yes, squirrels can be flighty, hyperactive, and bitey. They're not everyone's cup of tea. However, they are also not no one's cup of tea. So I think people should just be able to own them. However, most state officials do not, especially non-captive bred, formerly wild squirrels. But this is all undeniably his fault.
May I ask why you didn't have a permit? So, we had our permit. No, I'm backtrack. We filed our applications with the DEC, and we were waiting to do our interview with the DEC. So for those who are saying I don't have the paperwork, you know what, you're right. But we were working in the process of doing it.
7 years. To reiterate, I have a source, a friend of his, who has told me that someone complained about the squirrel in 2019, which, by the way, is completely contrary to what he told some sources, including the New York Times, and he was allegedly told the squirrel was okay to own. But this was after he possessed it illegally in Connecticut for years. He obtained the animal either without checking the laws or ignoring them. He got cocky and even added at least one raccoon later. He felt entitled to an exemption from the law due to his fame or whatever, and when the law caught up with him, he throws a hissy fit. We are raising funds to cover legal fees for attorneys who will assist us in addressing the damage caused and ensuring Peanut's return to his loving home. Well, for starters, it's clear looking at this Instagram that the animal is just a ruse for the true intended purpose of these videos. There's that.
And I battled and I fucking fought. I fought everybody who tried to turn that page into me. I fought it every day because that's how much Peanut meant to me, and I never wanted to take anything away from him. But you guys loved him, and I was always in the background, and I loved being in the background. I was so proud that everybody loved my animals. So everybody complained about my clothes or some bullshit about me, and I fought it because this never was about me.
So if that's the type of content you want to post, you don't need the squirrel, or you can just use another animal. I'm sorry folks, this is just how I am. I have to wonder, how much do these people really care about this animal? Considering they placed him at risk, considering that they were put on notice, and not only didn't get licensed immediately, but obtained raccoons afterwards, which are rabies vectors and not legal in the vast majority of states, especially when they come from the wild. Take a look at this raccoon. Does it look like it's being rehabbed appropriately, being taken for car rides to get a pup cup at Starbucks? This is why, allegedly, Peanut couldn't make it in the wild. I've volunteered at nature centers and have been involved in squirrel rehab. They are treating these animals as pets and making them social media stars for their own gain. I love pets, but not when you jeopardize the safety of the animal. He could have brought them to rehabbers and chose not to. Furthermore, he was supposedly trying to get a license so the squirrel can be used for education. Where is the education in these videos? Is it an anatomy lesson?
I have spent every day for 7 years promoting why these pets are not good pets.
If anything, these videos show that squirrels do make good pets. This squirrel has a nice calm demeanor despite not even being adopted that young. If this guy claims he's trying to discourage people from getting squirrels, he's doing the complete opposite of that. I can't help but see this as a narcissistic action when looking at his social medias. I believe these animals are being exploited, and I think that's why Karen called. Actually, that's apparently what he told in New York Post. Supposedly, he believes someone was, quote, jealous of the money his illegal pet was bringing in. The Post states they bought their property with the $800,000 they made in 1 month through their OnlyFans, and that Peanut was used as a draw for their adult entertainment. This means he is outright lying about having no other source of income. So, sorry, but how dare he threaten to sue the agents and then beg the public for $150,000? That's right, to those of you who donated, they more than likely make more money than you and will continue to without Peanut.
And you are 1000% right. This is not about money. It costs a lot of money. All of the fundraising is going to those animals. We have some very good counsel. They are going to do it pro bono. If we end up winning a case, all the money goes to the sanctuary. I'm not worried about money. I moved to a town that has 1,800 people because I fucking hate people in the city life. For those of you scumbags that think I live a lavish lifestyle, I clean up horse shit 15 hours a day. If you want to help contribute, there is a fundraiser below, and there's also a GoFundMe. Like I've said from the beginning, this is not about money. I could care fucking less about money. I moved to a town that has 1,800 people. I don't care. It's not money. It's not money.
As all they do is repost old clips of him juxtaposed with, you know what. I fully believe the DEC allowed him to keep the squirrel and didn't want to confiscate it. That's why he had it for 7 years. But when the raccoons showed up, they couldn't ignore it anymore. If they showed up and only took the raccoons, I'd be taking that as squirrels are legal in New York and everyone would do it as they should. There should be no double standards or one person being more equal than others. Longo probably thought he was above the law. He scoffed at it. He should be grateful they didn't arrest him, and instead what does he do? Yes, they do arrest people in other states for owning harmless animals, the same ones I own.
We're here just because of the restricted species that you have that you're selling. You obviously know that you can't have that.
Yeah. This is a big deal. Our department takes these things very seriously.
The problem with it is if something did ever happen, like you told me, and if it goes in your backyard, jumps the fence, next thing you know, it's out and about, and it could go through your neighbor's doggy door and, mess with someone. I mean, there's potential danger there.
I adored my Janet for 10 years until I lost him to cancer. Not once has he ever messed with someone. And to Longo supporters, these laws have existed for as long as I can remember. Why do you suddenly care now, when I rarely receive support trying to get these absurd laws reconsidered? Squirrels should be legal. All smaller pets that really cause no threat to public safety should be legal, at least with an obtainable permit when it comes to orphaned wildlife. I lived in New York for most of my life, and I actually had a squirrel there, although it was an exotic species, therefore presumed legal. I currently have 3 exotic pets that are not legal in New York, sadly. The laws are easy to find. We actually have fennec foxes legal there because fennec fox owners stood up against the ban. Maybe Longo should have joined in such efforts. There have been cases in the past where illegal animals have been granted clemency. Pets like Nudie the Nutria were allowed to be kept despite it being illegal for everybody else. That is wrong. TikTok or Instagram fame shouldn't grant you special entitlements. Hell, we even had a Eurasian eagle owl flying around New York City that they allowed the Central Park Zoo to stop trying to catch. And now they want to build him a statue. The Longos are not the victims they are pretending to be. The only real victims here are Peanut and Fred, killed because they are not perceived as domesticated, which has nothing to do with their potential to carry rabies. Accountability. Where does it lie? With the DEC workers who, likely after ignoring this situation for years, did their job and confiscated the animal? No. Accountability should start with Mark Longo.